Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, today on the Dungeon Dive, we are taking a look at 3 decks of cards from Philip Reed, and we've taken a look at a lot of Philip Reed stuff before. We've taken a look at the Outdoor Encounter cards, we've taken a look at the Labyrinth Encounters for Fantasy Trip, and today we'll be taking a look at the Hex Deck and also 50 Guests of the Inn and 50 Patrons of the Market. Hex Dek recently shipped from a Kickstarter campaign, and I was a backer of the Kickstarter campaign, and I was about ready to add my code into Drive-Thru RPG to get my printed deck, because with the Kickstarter, you got a code for the printed deck and also a PDF. But Phil actually contacted me and said he would send me these 3 decks. And then after we take a look at these decks, or maybe in conjunction with the decks, we're also going to be doing a little stealth design diary, designer's diary for the Land in Peril RPG game, because I am developing the RPG version of A Land in Peril in tandem with the board game version. And whenever I get these kinds of interesting tools, I like to think about them. I like to think about how the game I am designing can work with tools that come in. Kind of design it around certain tools that I like so that my game works with as many tools as possible. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But let's take a look at the Hex Deck first. This is really cool. I loved this idea when it appeared on Kickstarter. Phil Reed also I think just a couple days ago, from at the beginning of October of 2023, launched a campaign for a dungeon room version of this Hex Deck, and I am super excited for that. So this says that this is a systemless fantasy RPG hex crawl cards for use with most role-playing games. We have 58 double-sided cards, and this is designed by Philip Reed and edited by Lex Morgan. He's been working with Lex Morgan a lot as an editor. So in this deck of cards, again, this is available on Drive-Thru RPG. You can get the PDFs to make your own, or you can buy the decks of cards. We will get a few information cards, and then we will get our normal deck. And on the information cards here, he does suggest some different ways to play this game or to use this as a tool for your games. And I think one of the ways that he suggests is really interesting if you were playing a more of a traditional RPG with a game master and a number of players. You could take these cards and deal out a hand to each player, say 3 to 5 cards to each player. And then the players could take a look at their cards and read them, and then they could lay 1 card on the table. Each player would lay 1 card on the table, and then maybe even the GM would as well. And then that would be the hex map that you would be playing that adventure in, that campaign in. Then you could combine all of these to make one large continent to adventure in. I think that's really cool because it gives the players some agency on the kind of world that they are adventuring in. And I think when it comes to a traditional RPG, for me, it's really important for the players to be involved in the creation process. I like those to be, group storytelling efforts. And that is a really neat way to kind of force the players to do that. But it doesn't force the players to use their own creativity, because sometimes a player may not have an idea. Like, I have no idea what I want to do. But if you give them some choices, they can look at the choices and be, oh, okay, this might be really cool to adventure in a crystal realm. Or maybe they want to visit this weird tower, or this nice little kind of monastery or an orphanage by a pond or something like that. So really cool. I like that idea a lot. For the solo player, you could easily just draw one of these at random, and that could be an entire adventure. You have a 7-hex campaign or 7-hex adventure that you can play with, or you could draw a number of them and combine them and make your hex map like so. So each one of these cards will have, like I said, 7 hexes with the various terrain. You have water and mountains and weird planar terrain or otherworldly terrain, plains and all kinds of things like that. And then you will have a couple of keyed hexes, 1 or 2 keyed hexes that have detailed descriptions. So here we have the Blood Coast. And so this is a small city of 5,000. It's home to gentle folk and a violently cruel gang of thieves that secretly controls the city. Okay, so that could be the hook for this adventure. And then on the back of the card, you will have details on 1 or 2 hexes. So again, we have more of our Blood Coast, more details here. At first glance, it looks to be an ordinary city. Below the surface hides a criminal infestation. We also have this Prison of Blood in Hex 2 here. And that is a permanently moored far from the shore. This floating prison is used by the thieves who control the city. They send their foes here to die. It is said the thieves also hide treasure on board the large ship. And then we also get a D6 table for having random town encounters. So you could have thieves disguised as guards. The PCs are accused of a crime. An old woman begs for help. A visiting paladin senses nearby evil. The heroes are invited to join the gang, or a dragonfolk warrior attacks a thief. So those would be different kinds of encounters. Let's take a look at a couple more here. Maybe here we have the Field of Glowing Bones. The rocks that cover this mountain are joined by thousands of giant bones, each of which glows lavender. Why are the bones here? More details. The bones of hundreds of long-dead giants cover the mountains. Every bone glows lavender, flashing of white if a spellcaster happens to touch one of them. These are the remains of an army of giant warriors that were slaughtered by devilish fiends many years ago. Anyone who sleeps near the glowing bones wakes up the next day weak and restless. The bones drain life. Okay, so that could add a little bit of time pressure. You have to do some kind of quest within that hex to find something. And so you do have a little bit of time pressure now. And then here we have some random encounters for mountains. 1d4 plus 1 glowing skeletons attack. So some life-draining skeletons maybe. A necromancer offers to hire the PCs for some reason. 2d3 skeletons are digging a pit. Why? A rock spire is covered in strange runes. What are those runes? 1d6 plus 2 goblins run from a rock giant. And finally, a bone golem is guarding a cave mouth. That might be the entrance to some kind of dungeon that the adventurers or the players want to explore there. But yeah, there are all kinds of really cool cards here. I love this idea. I'm very much looking forward to the dungeon room version of this deck that is coming out soon. Those combined together with the labyrinth encounters or with the outdoor encounters will make for a really easy time to create some very detailed and interesting adventures for the standard role-playing game or for the soloist. Now, we also have 50 patrons of the market. So when you are visiting a market, you might want to quickly come up with some NPCs. And we have all of the NPCs that you could possibly need for when you are visiting a market. So here we have written by Philip Reed and edited by Lex Morgan. I'm not sure who the art was done by. Let me see. The art for the Hex cards was done by Hex Illustrations by Thomas No, used under a license, and some artwork copyright by Phil Kearney. And then the patrons of the market here. Let's see what we have here. Card artwork by Henrik Karppinen, used under a license. Okay, so we have some instructions on some of the more detailed characters, but we have a whole bunch of different characters that you might visit in a market. Of course, they are not confined to a market. You could use these for any kind of town adventure. Anywhere in town, you might encounter some of these adventurers or some of these NPCs, I should say. Let's draw one at random here. So maybe we stumble across Peter Devik. Peter Devik made a deal with the devil Abaddon. Now he wants to break the bargain, preferably without losing the powers granted to him by the fiend. So he wants his cake and he wants to eat it too. The warlock is seated at the market's crossroads, blocking the way for those trying to walk by. He is studying one of the cobblestones that make up the street. Looking up at the heroes, he mutters, "The key to escape is buried here." What does he mean? That's a pretty cool prompt there for an adventure, for an urban adventure. Let's draw another one here. We have Dalibor Budimir waves at the party and asks if they want an investment opportunity. Budimir has enlisted the aid of a few of rogues. Inexperience has listed. Let's try that again. Budimir has enlisted the aid of a few rogues. inexperienced youths looking for a break to look for treasure. He tells the heroes that he only needs 20 gold to outfit his crew. Invest in us, he says, and we'll repay you triple in a week. He plans to lead the teens into the sewers, a notoriously dangerous place. Okay, so that could lead to all kinds of things. The heroes could take an investment opportunity and see how that pays out. Or they could maybe volunteer to go with Dalibor into the sewers and maybe let the teens off, and so they don't have to risk their lives. But yeah, so all kinds of different NPCs that you can interact with. Each one kind of has a story hook. It has a background and something that could very, very easily lead to an interesting adventure. And it's just always nice to have cards like this at your disposal, because it's very easy to get locked up in a game. I'm sure everybody knows, you're playing a game and all of a sudden you have to come up with an NPC, or you have to come up with something, and your mind blanks. And my mind blanks all the time. And so any kind of tool that we can have to help alleviate that is a good thing. And then we have these 50 guests of the inn here. And so very similar to the market, just these are all NPCs that you might find at the inn. So we have like Alexander McKellick, Gordon Zorlev, Bernat Otwega, Kostas Jasavicius. Drazen Buzov is an overly grim and serious. Only yesterday, Buzov lost the members of his adventuring party, so maybe you can hire him when they face a ghostly soldier at the crossroads to the north of the inn. Buzov is looking for others to join him in facing the spirit and avenging the death of his friends. Okay, so that would be a cool little adventure there. Maybe we meet Demir Muhik, is an elven ranger living in a cabin near the inn. He visits the inn each night, enjoying the company of others and gathering news. Tonight, Muhik has information of his own to share. An evil mage has seized an abandoned tower and is setting up shop there. Okay, so we have the tower there. We know that there are some Hex Dek cards that have towers on them. So maybe we can find one here. That looks like a tower here. The Silent Sanctuary. Let's see. Let's find a better tower. Sleepy Shrooms 2. We have these skulls. Stop. That looks like a tower there. Some kind of advanced evil. And a lich there. Okay, so we have a card here for Demir. And we also have a hex map that we can use. So there we've kind of put together an NPC, we've put together an adventure, and now maybe our character is going out. Maybe our character is starting down here, and they are going to adventure into Hex 2 in order to help Demir take care of this evil mage who has seized the abandoned tower and is setting up a shop there. We don't want that to happen. So in my game of A Land in Peril, in developing the game, the RPG version alongside the board game version, most of the rules are going to stay the same. You will have the same type of character, exactly the same character. So you will pick from one of the 4 classes, and then you will have your attributes that are assigned to that class. I am playing a warrior now as Kragor, and I have an attack of 2, an athletics of 2, a brawn of 3, a concentration of 1, and a determination of 6. And in my games, the determination stat is both your HP, and it is also a currency that you can spend to make cool stuff happen. So in the board game version, you can spend your currency to reroll dice. In the RPG version, you can spend your currency to take control of the story. Those are kind of like authorship points. Whenever your determination goes to 0 in the RPG mode, that adventure is over. That doesn't mean that your character has died, just that part of your character's life is done, and then you can reestablish that character, and you can continue to have adventures with that character. But there are repercussions for going down to 0. And the repercussions more are story repercussions. It is up to you, the player, to determine when your character dies. I'm really interested in giving the authorship over to the player. I want the player to control the impact of the story on the character. I don't want character death to be just because you rolled dice poorly or for bad luck. And so throughout your character's life, you will have many adventures, and then maybe you will narrate that character's end. My game is going to be for shorter campaigns, for kind of short story style campaigns where you might move certain characters in and out. You might have a stable of characters that you revisit over time. Each one of the characters in the game will also only go up to level 3. So again, this isn't for long-term campaigns. I'm containing it to level 3 just because that's what the board game is. And there will be a few more options for leveling up in the RPG version. Characters will not be... You can't use an RPG character in the board game and vice versa. The characters are separate to each version of the game, but they use the same basic rules. As a level 1 warrior, I start with an old sword, which is a melee and slash. I start with no items. My level 1 power is I can reroll any dice in a combat challenge, and I can do that twice per level. So if I use both of those in a level 1, when I reach level 2, I can use 2 of those again. I can use those again. I have spaces for armor, helm, and items, and also a time tracker. I'm developing some ways to use that time tracker in the RPG mode as a kind of way to set story points for the player when they are on an adventure. So these will be kind of like thresholds that you might find on a hero's journey or something like that. One of the important things that I'm working on is the ability for players, for the soloist especially, the game is designed for solo play first and foremost, is for the player to very quickly roll up challenges and roll up a bestiary on the fly, or roll up a trap on the fly, roll up different types of challenges on the fly. I don't want there to be a kind of set bestiary or a set group of traps. I'm coming up with some tables that people can roll up so they can always come up with new things. And one of those things is when you come up against an enemy. So let's say we were coming up against some skeletons or something as we were approaching this lich. And the lich, it was a necromancer, and he animated some skeletons to attack us. And so in determining that encounter, the first thing you would do is determine the difficulty of the encounter. And you would do that by rolling a d6. On a 1 to 4, it's normal. So in the game, let's back up a little bit. In the game, it's a dice pool system, and you're normally looking for 5s or 6s for successes. So if I were to fight a skeleton with my brawn of 3, I would have 3d6. And then I would roll those 3d6. I would look for a 5 or a 6 for a single success. So that is a normal. An easy encounter is a 4, 5, or 6, and a difficult encounter is only on a 6. There's one pretty major change to the rules in the RPG mode, and that is the addition of a chaos die. And this was kind of, I guess, blatantly stolen from the Talisman RPG, greatly inspired by, paying homage to, you know the drill. But you always add an extra d6 to your dice pool, and it has to be of a different color so you know which is the chaos die. And the chaos die corresponds to the chaos bag. So we have a bag system here with Bane tokens and Boon tokens. And this is kind of an oracle system that, again, forces the player to drive the story. And this is a very important element to the way that I play solo games, is giving the permission to the player to drive the story. And so when you make a challenge, so let's say I was attacking a skeleton and I had a brawn of 3, and I'm looking for it's a normal challenge, so a 5 or a 6. So I would roll my dice pool. I need a 5 or a 6. Okay, so I failed that challenge. I did not roll a 5 or a 6. You don't look at your chaos die to determine success. You only look at your dice pool there. So I failed that challenge. I rolled a 1, a 3, and a 2. So on a failed challenge, you immediately lose 1 point of determination. So my determination would drop down to 5. However, I did roll a 6 on the chaos die, and that means that I add a boon token to my chaos bag. At the beginning of each session, you will add a boon and a bane token into your chaos bag, so things are in balance now. And because I rolled that 6, I will add another boon token to the chaos bag. So now I have a little bit more boon in there. Chaos is in my favor. The universe is in my favor, possibly. Let's say I was involved in another challenge and I rolled a 6 on the chaos die, and I also rolled a 6 on one of my stat dice, one of my attribute dice. So now I have 1 success to go towards whatever challenge I was going towards, but I also have a double 6 that includes the chaos die. When that happens, I also add 1 boon token because of the 6, and because it's the doubles, I now draw one of the tokens from the chaos bag. And we drew a boon token. So this would mean that something good, something really good would happen to propel the story forward. And then it's up to me to narrate what happens. If you drew the bane token from the bag, you still succeed in that challenge, but something bad happens because of it, or the story progresses in a negative way. And so this would be a way to force you to make something bad happen to your hero. Additionally, if you ever draw, if you drew a 1 on the chaos, let's do this. Let's set this up. So let's say this was our pool we rolled. We rolled a 1 on the chaos die, a 6, a 1, and a 2. Because of that 1, we would add a bane token. So whenever you roll a 1 on the chaos die, you add a bane token to the bag. And then we have our 6, so we do have a success. So we successfully overcome that challenge. However, we also have a double 1 with the chaos die. Now we also draw a token from the bag. So you might have a bane token, or you might actually draw a boon token. Sometimes you might have a 1 and a 1 here. And this would show that you have failed that challenge. So you would lose a point of determination, but you would also draw a token from the chaos bag, and you might draw a bane or a boon token. And even though you failed that challenge, something good happens because of that failure, or it just forces you as the player to make those choices. So I do really like that system. I have been kind of developing this chaos bag oracle over the last year or so, and I did have some Dungeon Dive patrons test it out for me, and some of them liked it, some of them didn't. It does cause the game to have big swings in narrative. But for me, that's something that I enjoy, because sometimes when you're playing a solo RPG, it's really hard to know when you should push the story forward for good or bad reasons. And this just forces you to do so, and it kind of forces you to say, okay, something bad is happening or something good is happening. Now, what is happening? And then to come up with challenges on the fly, I am coming up with a different tables of elements that you roll up. So the first thing you would do is you would determine the difficulty. I think we kind of started that earlier before I got sidetracked here. But we determine the difficulty of the combat. Let's say this is a combat challenge. So a 3. Okay, so it's a normal challenge. So 5s and 6s are successes. Okay, next up would be the type of creature that we are facing. And we have 6 different types right now: magic, demon, draconic, undead, human, and beast. So I would roll that 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is an undead. Now in the board game version, these don't have any special traits on their own. In the RPG version, they will have special abilities. So an undead is hard to kill. And I haven't quite determined what that is yet, but these will have more details in the RPG version. So we're facing off against an undead. And the next thing you want to do is determine what the weakness and toughness is of this creature. And that is another roll of a 2d6. We'll say the yellow is toughness. Okay, so he is tough against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He is tough against being cursed, and he is weak against magic. So if you have a magical ability, a magic sword or magic armor, a magic headband, something with a magic quality, then you get to add 1d6 to your dice pool. However, if you have something that's cursed, because they are tough against cursed, then you remove 1d6 from your dice pool. And then there will also be a chart, and I haven't developed this yet, but there will be a chart for certain kind of personality traits. Maybe they're conniving, maybe they're intelligent, maybe they're dim-witted, maybe they're angry, maybe they're quick to judge, things like that. And then in the RPG version of this game, you will be able to get things that will help you deal with those personality types. And so again, those will either add to or subtract from your dice pool. And it will be very easy to roll up random challenges when you come across something in a tool that is made for generic RPGs that are system agnostic tools. And so I'm trying to develop the Land and Peril RPG to be able to be used with as many of these system agnostic tools as possible. And so I'm going to be experimenting a lot with these kinds of tools while I'm playing my game and developing my game, using my game as my system of rules of choice. But I love this Hex Dek. I think it's super useful. These NPC cards are always a good thing because it's hard to come up with NPCs on the fly. You know, there's also the Inkwell NPC cards, which we did just recently take a look at in my top 10 solo RPG things. But yeah, this Hex Dek is awesome. All kinds of really useful things to generate adventures and land masses and hexes on the fly. And I'm really looking forward to the Dungeon Room deck that should be coming out soon. Well, all right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed taking a look at these new tools from Philip Reed and Lex Morgan. And additionally, I hope you enjoyed this kind of stealth design diary for the Land in Peril RPG. And we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.